Joining me right now is the former Connecticut Senator, United Against Nuclear Iran chairman, and former Democrat vice presidential nominee, the author of The Centrist Solution, How We Made Government Work and Can Make It Work Again. Joe Lieberman is here. Senator, it's great to see you. Thanks very much for being here. You know, this morning we're talking about a de-escalation at the border. But, of course, people are not trusting Putin. We don't know what his motives are. And after all, look at all of the vast sums of money that he's making where oil is right now, Senator. We were previously expecting Russia to invade Ukraine tomorrow. A lot of specifics from the State Department over the weekend. And now we see a de-escalation situation. Where are you on this? Assess the situation for us.
Right. Good to be with you, Maria. Well, Putin is a fox. He's calculating, and he's not to be trusted. We've seen that before. So I don't take anything but a kind of curious interest in the fact that he has moved 10,000 of his troops back from the Ukrainian border. He still has 120,000 there, and it's hard to imagine that he's not going to do something. He has a choice now. He's either going to move into parts of Ukraine to justify all the money he spent to bring his troops to the Ukrainian border, or he's going to try to extract the promise from the U.S. and NATO, all of promises we should not give him. So I continue to be very concerned about this situation. I will say this. Yesterday, the Russian parliament, called the Duma, adopted or began considering a resolution calling on the government to essentially seize two provinces, regions in eastern Ukraine. And, the Russian parliament doesn't act independently. It does what Putin says. So it may be that that's the way he sees this ending. It can't end without him doing something aggressive. And I think the U.S. and NATO right now ought to tell him if he goes into eastern Ukraine, he is also going to be suffering great economic penalties from the U.S. And in my opinion, if he does that, one of the things we ought to do right afterward is move to bring Ukraine into NATO so that Putin will never be able to menace the Ukrainian people, which don't want him to lead them, again.
So we saw the report yesterday that the U.S. is considering loan guarantees for Ukraine. Russia is returning some troops to bases after drills, and that has created some calm for global markets at this point. But what does Putin want? What are the concessions that you think the U.S. may agree to make this worry go away?
Well, I'm one who believes that you've got to listen to what people are saying, read what they're writing, and take that to be, even in the case of Putin, the truth. And I think he believes that the end of the Soviet Union really was a catastrophe, and that Russia actually owns Ukraine, if you will, that it's part of Russia. Of course, the Ukrainian people don't want Russia to control them. Some of this also has to do with his own relative unpopularity in Russia today because of problems with the economy and even the suppression of freedom, which is a hallmark of his regime. So I can't see him ending this crisis without getting something. And I hope and pray that the U.S. and NATO don't give him what he wants. He may take some of these provinces in eastern Ukraine, and we've got to come down hard on him if he does. And I repeat, our strongest response is to draw the red line. Bring Ukraine into NATO. Let him know that if he ever does this again, we will take military action against him.
Yeah. I mean, I can't see President Biden doing that. You remember his comments just a few weeks ago that it depends on how big an incursion is. If it's a small incursion, maybe it'll be fine. Meanwhile, we see Russia partnering with China right now, and Iran has also been brought into the fold. Iran in talks for a new nuclear deal. It seems the United States is desperate to get back into a nuclear deal. The country's foreign minister of Iran urging the West to stop playing with with text and time, and that sanctions should be lifted at the UN Security Council. How do you see the Iran story playing out? Do you think this administration will get the United States back into that deal?
Well, I worry that the administration will get the U.S. back into the Iran nuclear deal, and I worry about it because this regime in Tehran, they're extremists, they're cheaters. There is no agreement that they would make with us that will be in our interest or in the interest of our allies in the Middle East, the Israelis, the Arab nations who have the most to lose from a bad agreement. So I'm very worried about the way that these negotiations are going. And following on the blow that our credibility in the world took after our retreat from Afghanistan, making a bad deal on nuclear weapons with Iran will hurt us and our credibility even more. People around the world, including particularly China and Russia, will sense weakness in us. And when that happens, they will move to take advantage of us. So that's not only bad for the Middle East, that's bad for the world.
Yeah,
if it was up to me, I'd walk away from the negotiations with Iran in Vienna and slam more economic sanctions on Iran and let them now come to the table wanting an agreement with us more than we wanted. I mean, this has to end with the end of their nuclear enrichment program. But right now, that seems like a very distant dream.
Yeah, I mean, you make so many good points. It's all quite extraordinary that in the midst of talks, you're seeing enrichment of uranium continue, and Iran is backing the Houthis, who are actually attacking Abu Dhabi. So a new level of urgency. Yeah. Yeah,
you are so right, Maria. Not only are they continuing to enrich closer to the level at which they can make nuclear weapons, but the proxies for Iran, the Houthis, Hezbollah, the others are attacking our allies, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, threatening Israel, and incidentally striking at American troops in the United Arab Emirates. I mean, this has got to stop. You can't make an agreement.
You would think that would be enough. You would think that would be enough for this administration to say, we're out. We're walking away.
We're out.
But no.
Exactly.
We're in Vienna, and we're being represented by China and Russia in these Vienna talks. It's, like I said, quite extraordinary. Joe Lieberman, thanks very much, sir. We'll keep watching all of that. We so appreciate your time.